Are we living in the biblical last days? If so, you might be interested in a city called Babylon, Mystery Babylon, foretold in the Holy Scriptures to meet its destruction. The Christian Bible, the book of Revelations, describes this city as being the wealthiest city known. Its wealth and influence so vast that its prophesied destruction leaves the earth in ruins. So, where and what is this great city, Babylon? Join us as we explore for the truth, perhaps hidden in plain sight. We will discuss what the book of Revelations has to say about this Babylon. But Babylon is only part of the system of control of the people of the earth in the last days. This beast rules with an iron fist, yet it meets a sudden and complete destruction. So it begs the question, do you and I live in Babylon? Babylon is mentioned in the Old Testament of the King James Bible. It is sometimes important to go back to the Old Testament to understand the imagery presented in Revelations. According to many scholars, the whore of Babylon is the spirit of seduction, culture, actively engaged in the deception and destruction of God's people. That she rides upon this beast means that she is propped up by the forces of an anti-Christian government. Just like the beast who was and is not and is about to rise, the whore keeps on rising from the dead. A particular brand of her seductive charm may fall into the dust and be buried by the sands of time. But just wait. Before you know it, she will rise again in another place, known by another name, but waging the same destructive war against humanity. Once she was named Babylon, and then she was named Rome. But in the future, she will be called something else. Like a grotesque parody of the Godhead, she was and is to come, but she is destined for destruction. As it was in the past, so shall it be in the future. Now, while scholars may debate the precise interpretation of a few aspects of this vision, the main points of application seem abundantly clear. Culture is not neutral. Attacks on humanity come through the front door and through government persecution. Attacks on people through the back door, through seductive and idolatrous culture. And an enemy of mankind will finally stand. And that day is coming. And that will be the end of Babylon on that day. So we started out looking for the city of Babylon. Where is it? What's the exact location? And should that really matter? And this study brought us more into the bigger picture of what Babylon really is. Much more than just a city. It sounds like it's an entire civilization. And it does aptly describe our modern world. What will happen when Babylon meets its end? Do we live in Babylon? That is the purpose of tonight's video. First, we will paint you a picture of what Babylon is, what the Bible says it will happen to it, and try to determine if we are living in these end times to begin with. And if so, where is the city of Babylon? Do we live in it? And if so, what should we do? The city of Babylon is in Iraq. What many do not know is that Saddam Hussein, president of Iraq, thought himself to be a reincarnation of the biblical king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar. His belief that led him to spend untold amounts of money, complete with the installation of his image alongside the ancient king in stone, art, and coin. Now, Saddam Hussein was not the Antichrist, as we learned because history passed, and that was some years ago. It seems like every day that the sun shines could qualify under the description and revelations of our city of Babylon, and any time seems to have met the criteria for this prophecy. However, most of those, all of them, are somewhat incomplete. And so for the prophecies to apply to a particular time, all the prophecies must be complete. And so what is lacking right now? Was Saddam Hussein an important figure? Did it advance the Revelation story? It is people like Saddam Hussein and Nebuchadnezzar and all the tyrants and kings and the good lordly kings and queens in between. It is all of those and their history and their deeds that seem to have culminated into one giant final empire, a glorious place, a culmination of all the aspirations like Nebuchadnezzar and Saddam Hussein from history to today. So have we reached that point? And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. That was Revelation 18:21. Now you may find it interesting that Babylon has been referred to as the harlot of Babylon, the whore of Babylon, and Mystery Babylon. And so those are important to understand to our study. And so now we're going to go to some passages from Revelations where it begins, And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, this is John speaking, the one who saw the vision in Revelations, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon the many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. And so he carried John away in the spirit into the wilderness. And John saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, and having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots, and the abominations of the earth. And John continues, And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen. 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, and even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goes into perdition. And the 10 horns, which you saw, are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings, 1 hour with the beast. And the angel said unto John, The waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the woman which you saw, John, is the great city, which reigns over the kings of the earth, and that would be Babylon. And so that is Babylon. And so we go back to Revelations 18 to continue John's vision with the angel. And the angel is talking to John, and he's shown him what we had just described. And after these things, I saw another angel coming down from heaven. This is John, having great authority, and the earth was illuminated with his glory. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. And then John said he heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. For her sins have reached to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. Render to her just as she rendered to you, and repay her double according to her works. In the cup which she has mixed, mix double for her. In the measure that she glorified herself and lived luxuriously, in the same measure give her torment and sorrow. For she says in her heart, I sit as a queen, and am no widow, and will not see sorrow. And therefore her plagues will come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she will be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judges her. And the kings of the earth who committed fornication and lived luxuriously with her will weep and lament for her when they see the smoke of her burning, standing at a distance for fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, the mighty city, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. And the merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her, for no one buys their merchandise anymore. Merchandise of gold and silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen and purple silk and scarlet, every kind of citron wood and every kind of object of ivory, every kind of object of most precious wood, of bronze, iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and incense, and fragrant oil, and frankincense, and wine, and oil, and fine flour, and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and chariots, and bodies and souls of men. The fruit that you so long for has gone from you, and all the things which are rich and splendid have gone from you, and you shall find them no more at all. And the merchants of these things, who became rich by her, will stand at a distance for fear of her torment, weeping and wailing and saying, Alas, alas, the great city was clothed in fine linen, and purple and scarlet, and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, for in 1 hour such great riches came to nothing. And every shipmaster, all who travel by ship, and sailors, and as many as trade on the sea, stood at a distance and cried out when they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, "What is like this great city?" And they threw dust on their heads and cried out in weeping and wailing, and saying, "Alas, alas, that great city, in which all who had ships on the sea became rich by her wealth. For in 1 hour she is made desolate. Rejoice over her, O heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God has avenged you on her." And he continues, as the angel continues to talk to John. "And then a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and threw it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence the great city Babylon shall be thrown down, and shall not be found any more. And the sound of harpists, musicians, and flutists, and trumpeters shall not be heard in you any more. And no craftsman of any craft shall be found in you any more. And the sound of a millstone shall not be heard in you any more. And the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall not be heard in you any more. For you are merchants with the great men of the earth, and for by your sorcery all the nations were deceived, and in her was found the blood of prophets and saints, and all of who were slain on the earth." And that was the chapter 18, John's vision of the destruction of Babylon. So that's prophesied to have happened, and our premise was to decide, do we live in this Babylon? We will continue this study in another video, and we will go into some details and analyze Revelations a bit further, and go into a very detailed study of what Babylon should look like. And do we live in Babylon?
10, 9, 8, 7,